Hello and welcome to the WellMind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Coles. I am a clinical mental health counselor and counselor educator here at Bethany Lutheran College. And I am excited to share some news with you. First of all, I'm just excited to be back in the studio doing some recording here. I have taken a break from the podcast over the past 9 to 10 months. Really, that's been driven by focus on a number of other projects, some of those related to the counseling program here at Bethany. We're working on our specialized accreditation, and that certainly has taken up a lot of my time and energy. But I've also been working on some other projects, and I can share a little bit about those in a moment. But the news is that the podcast is coming back, and I'm excited to share with you some really neat conversations. So, over the 40 plus episodes that have been published so far, the vast majority of those were focused on conversational interviews with experts from all different disciplines related to wellness, mental health, theology, and religion. And I have so enjoyed those conversations. I've brought some of my good friends on the podcast and met people for the first time through this podcast as well. So all of those episodes are going to remain available, but what I want to do is offer up some seasons of the WellMind podcast. And by doing that, I hope to focus on the podcast for a concentrated amount of time and really narrow the scope so that the season contains interviews and content that's all interconnected and related, so that I can focus on this, work on the podcast, publish out a season, and then be able to turn my attention towards some of those other projects that I like to work on. And that way I can continue putting out good content, meaningful, hopefully, content around wellness related topics, but also not feel like I'm dropping the ball when it comes to the podcast. Again, this is a personal project and something that I have enjoyed doing since its inception. And like I said, I've just gotten away from it. So I have a couple of episodes already recorded and ready to go. I'm going to be releasing those in the coming weeks, and then I'll continue with that. So first, I'll talk a little bit about some of the other projects I've been working on, just kind of as a life update, and then I'll preview the season, and that I'll just wrap up things for this, just so that we can keep it brief and focused here. So, like I said, within the counseling program, one of the special projects that I've been working on is accreditation. Now, we've been regionally accredited since the launch of the program back in 2021. But now we are pursuing and are in the midst of our specialized accreditation. And that's CACREP. And it's a really lengthy, robust process, as it should be for specialized accreditation for a mental health counseling program. But we're right in the middle of that process. We've completed our self-study, submitted that, gone through a desk review within the CACREP process, now are preparing for a site visit. So in this interim, while we are awaiting that site visit and preparing for that, I have some opportunity to focus on the podcast. I'm also, I've been working on a lot of speaking engagements, running seminars and workshops. And obviously that takes a lot of time and energy to prepare and deliver those as well. So some of the highlights for me in 2024 definitely was going down to Florida and running a 3-day workshop for the South Atlantic District of the WELS. So these are all called workers, pastors, teachers, and staff ministers from a really large region. And I was able to facilitate a workshop primarily focused on self-care and well-being. And that was an amazing process. But again, a lot of time and energy went into preparing that 3-day workshop. Since then, I've also collaborated with Dr. Jenna Longren, who's been a regular on the podcast and will be appearing in season 2 as well. But we were able to collaborate on a workshop for continuing education for counselors and marriage and family therapists, social workers, a broad range of helping fields. But that was all focused on ethics and self-care and the intersections of those two topics. And that was super fun as well. We were able to deliver that in person up in the Twin Cities. I had a great turnout, great participation in that workshop. And I've had some other smaller speaking things where maybe it's just an hour presentation here and there or something. But again, I'm working toward another series of presentations coming up later in March as well. And that will be at CAPS, the Christian Association for Psychological Studies. I've spoken about that organization on the podcast in the past as well. I had some folks that are part of that organization as guests on the podcast. So that's been just a wonderful professional home. But they have their international conference coming up here in a few weeks in Denver, Colorado. I'll be going out with a couple of our faculty, some alumni, as well as a few of our current students in the counseling program. And at the conference, I'll have the opportunity to do a couple of presentations. One, I'm sitting on a panel with two other counselor education faculty from other counselor ed programs, and we're going to be having a panel discussion on Christian faith integration in the curriculum and training of mental health counselors. So I'm really excited about that and have been actively collaborating with those faculty on preparing for it. And then Dr. Lundgren, Jenna, and I are also doing a breakout session that is a really focused, pared down version of that training that we did back in 2024. So really hitting a couple of highlight points on ethics and self-care and how that needs to be integrated into professional practice. We're going to be doing that at the conference in a breakout session. And then I'll otherwise just be attending and hanging out with colleagues, alumni, our students, those kind of things. It's going to be a really fun time for sure. But looking forward to that. And one of our alumni actually had a poster presentation accepted. So I will be checking that out and supporting her as she presents her poster during the conference session as well. Lots of really fun things that I've been able to work on over the past 10 months. But I am excited to be back here with you in the studio recording some episodes of the podcast. So season 2 is going to be a series of conversations with the current faculty here at Bethany Lutheran College in our clinical mental health counseling program. So the first 2 episodes are with my dear friends and colleagues, Dr. Karina Clennon and Dr. Helena Stevens. These are the other 2 core faculty in our program. So between the 3 of us, we teach well over half of the curriculum and do a lot of advising, mentorship, as well as supporting students through their practicum and internship and other clinical training experiences. So this initial part of the season will be my conversations with them and talking to them about their experiences that really contributed to them becoming professional helpers. How did they find this field? And then some real relevant takeaways as well from their journey that I think will apply to anybody considering a helping profession or currently working in a helping profession, but certainly touching on a lot of wellness related themes and topics as well. So I'm excited for that. And then I will transition into a series of conversations with all of the various adjunct faculty that we have teaching in the program. We have such a privilege with some of our adjunct faculty because they have these really interesting and relevant experiences and training that have prepared them to teach specific courses and content within a counselor ed program like ours. So I am excited to be able to share their stories, their areas of expertise through the podcast as well. So this series of conversations is going to be, like I said, a finite series that I'll record and I'll push out those episodes on a semi-consistent basis here over the next few months. And in that way, I'm still kind of scratching that itch of being in the studio and doing the podcast and having that, but also hoping that this can be a real sustainable way for me to be able to engage in this from a project-based perspective. And it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for me to really share and showcase in this season the tremendous diversity educators that we have in our program and be able to share their stories and, like I said, their expertise with you. So please hit that subscribe button so that when the new episodes come out, those automatically get pushed to you. You'll be able to listen to them. My focus, too, is also to have these episodes be a bit briefer. Somewhere under 40 minutes is going to be my intention. So we'll see how successful I am with that. I just think it's also useful to have these conversations be delivered in a really consumable way. I know some of the podcasts that I listen to, when they are multi-hours long, it's just impossible for me to get through them. So my hope is with these being concentrated and focused in that sense, that it'll be an easy listen, maybe while you're making dinner at home or in the car ride on your commute or something like that, or taking us to the gym with you while you're working out. Any of those, it'd be a privilege to be able to come along with you. My hope, too, is that you share out these episodes. So as you are listening to them and finding some interesting, meaningful information or content or stories, that you would just share word of mouth. That really helps promote the podcast as well. Like I said, there's 40-some episodes that are already out and available. If you haven't listened to those, please sort through some of those and find some ones that are going to be of interest to you and give those a listen. So thanks for tuning in, for being a part of the WellMind community. If you haven't listened before, welcome. I'm excited to share this next iteration of the podcast with you. And for those of you that have been listening from the beginning, thank you for being along on this journey. It's been a real privilege to be a part of your life through this podcast. And I look forward to sharing this new season with you. All right, everybody, take care and be well.